Good evening, everybody. You are all very welcome to Dunsink Observatory, which is run by the Dublin Institute for Advanced Studies. My name is Sive, and I'm going to be with you all evening. We are very excited to have One Dublin One Book with us this evening. So that is an initiative run by the Dublin UNESCO City of Literature in association with Dublin City Council. And it's an initiative that encourages people to read a book connected with Dublin each year in the month of April. So this year's book is Snowflake by Louise Nealon. So this evening we are going to start off with some music from harpist Siobhan Armstrong. We will then have a reading from Louise from Snowflake. I will then do a brief astronomy talk because stargazing does feature in the book. Then we will go back to Louise for another reading and finish up with some more music from Siobhan. That will end kind of the programme in here, but before you all head home, we will bring you out to our South Dome with our Grub telescope. So for anyone who wants to have a look at that before you go, you are welcome to join us once we're finished in here. So for now, I will hand over to Siobhan.
Hello. Thank you so much, Siobhan, for setting the tone so beautifully. And thank you, Sive and everyone at Dunsink for being so accommodating. I came to an open night in Dunsink in, I think it was 2017, and I sat diligently taking notes in a notebook that I never used, because I knew that I had stargazing in the novel that I was writing. So I learned lots of stuff and promptly forgot it, but I kind of kept the magic of the evening. It's so wonderful to be able to come out here and learn all the history and stuff, which we'll hopefully have a bit tonight. So this is my book. It's called Snowflake. It's about an 18-year-old called Debbie who believes that, she grew up on a dairy farm in rural Kildare, and her mother Maeve believes that she's able to dream other people's dreams. And she thinks that she's passed this ability on to Debbie. She believes that the condition, a curse or a blessing or a power, is genetic. Debbie doesn't really get on with her mother, but she's very good friends with her uncle Billy, who lives in a caravan in a field out the back of their house. And Billy assures Debbie that her mother's mad, and her best... Hiya. No, you're fine. Welcome. Her best bet in life is to go to university and get an education and escape from her rural life. He also brings her up onto the roof of the caravan to look at stars, and asks her to retell Greek stories of Greek mythology. So that's where I will read from tonight. It's the opening chapter called The Caravan, and we meet Billy and Debbie on the roof of the caravan. The view from the roof of the caravan is the only thing that doesn't get smaller the older I get. We can hear the cows' hooves swishing through the grass. They come mooching over and sniff around the place to see what's happening. I inhale the dank, musty sweat of the caravan off the sleeping bag. Billy smells of cigarettes and diesel. The sleeves of his jumper dangle over his fingerless woolen gloves. A hedge of stubble prickles around his mouth and reaches across his cheekbones to join up with the hair behind his ears. You have a story for me, Billy says. I don't feel like a story. You do, he says. I'll pick a star. I pretend to be unenthusiastic and fidget with the zip of my sleeping bag. I tuck my hair behind my ear and wait for him to land on a star. Can you see the North Star? Billy asks. No, it's only the brightest star in the sky. It's not, actually. The Dog Star is the brightest. You told me the North Star was. Well, I was wrong. That's a shocker. So you see it? I've shown you it before. Only a couple of 100 times, Billy, but you told me it was the brightest star in the sky. It's the second brightest. And I'm supposed to figure out the second brightest star. It's the one with the W near it. Yes, I know it's the one that seems like the brightest, but it's not. I'm just checking we're talking about the same one. Fucking hell. So you see those 5 stars that make the wonky W near it? I squint up at the sky and try to connect the dots. I used to pretend I was able to see what Billy saw. I hate the effort of trying and still not being able to make things out. As far as I can tell, it's like reading Braille, only using lights that shine from billions upon billions of miles away. There are too many. The crowd of them all staring back at me is overwhelming. The older I get, the more of an effect I make, the more of an effort I make. Billy breaks the stars down into pictures and stories and makes it easier to distinguish between them. The W is one of the easier ones to spot. Yeah, I know it, I say. The one that looks like a rocking chair. Exactly, he says. I look over at his index finger, pointing up, tracing the stars together in smooth, straight lines. Cassiopeia's chair. I remember. Right so, Tell me about her. You know the story, Billy, I say. I haven't heard you tell it before. I sigh to buy more time. The characters are beginning to congregate in my mind. Go on then, Billy prompts. Cassiopeia was a queen in a past life. The wife of Cepheus, I explained. He's up there too. Cassiopeia was gas. She was lovely like, but people thought she was strange. She wore her hair loose and went around in her bare feet all the time, which people found shocking altogether because she was supposed to be royalty. She gave birth to a daughter called Andromeda, and she brought her up to love and respect herself, a radical idea back in the day. Her free spirit was mistaken for arrogance. Word got out that there was this hippie queen going around barefoot, loving herself, and teaching her daughter to do the same. Poseidon wasn't having any of it. He decided to remind humans that they could not run the show. So he sent a sea monster to destroy her husband's kingdom. Cassiopeia was told the only way to save the kingdom was to sacrifice her daughter. So she did. She chained Andromeda to a rock at the edge of a cliff and left her for dead. The bitch, Billy says. Well, she had no choice. It was either that or let the monster kill everyone. The Greeks were fucking nuts. Can I guess what happened to Andromeda? You can. Rescued by Prince Charming. Of course, I say. Billy passes me the bottle of whiskey. It burns my throat. Perseus killed the sea monster on his way back from slaying Medusa, and Andromeda was obliged to marry him out of courtesy, I say. Classic. And what happened to Cassiopeia? I point up to her. She's up there, in a rocking chair. Poseidon tied her to it, so that as she circles the North Pole, she's upside down. She's stuck in that chair, spinning until the end of time. Jesus, Billy says. Spending half your time upside down. It might make you see the world differently. I'd just be dizzy. Maybe you would at first, but you might get used to it. I'm happy enough with gravity, thanks. Happy enough for me to push you off this roof. He shoves my sleeping bag so hard that I roll over and scream. You prick, Billy! It's not funny! Not a fan of the birthday bumps. Stop it, I say. But I'm happy and warm inside. I think about my story and take another swig from the bottle. The first sip of whiskey has already sent me spinning up towards the sky.
Sorry, 1 second. Make sure this is up. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Louise. I myself am an avid reader, but I spend most of my days working here, thinking about or looking at space. So I wanted to give you guys a little overview of some of the things that Louise has mentioned there in the first chapter, because they are things that you can see in the night sky. I would say tonight the clouds are not looking promising for us. If the clouds weren't there, you would see these things. So for the most part, the sky in the northern hemisphere stays roughly the same year round. It varies a little bit, but the things that I'm going to show you, for the most part, you can see on any clear night. Okay, so for any stargazers, one of the first things that you spot in the sky, one of the easiest things to spot, is the plough or the Big Dipper, depending on who you ask. It's the thing that looks kind of like a saucepan in the sky. The saucepan was always the reference that I had. So it's this kind of sequence of stars here that hopefully you can see me tracing out. So the idea with the saucepan is that these stars here kind of line up to make the handle, and then you've got kind of the bowl of the saucepan there. It's generally quite easy to spot, just because it's got quite a lot of bright stars in it, and it's quite a recognisable shape. So it's a good place to start if you're looking at the sky. And from that, you can find lots of things. So the first one, there's always a little rhyme that people use in astronomy, and it's arc to Arcturus. So if you go from the handle of the saucepan and you arc down, you get to this star here, which is very conveniently labelled as Arcturus. That is the fourth brightest star in the sky. If you go from the other end of the saucepan, so kind of the tip of the bowl, and you point straight upwards, you get to Polaris, or the North Star. Okay, that is the one that doesn't move in the sky. So the reason that it doesn't move is because it's aligned with the rotation of the Earth. Okay, so it's just to do with kind of the tilt of the Earth and how we rotate. It's in the same line as Polaris, which is why it doesn't move. All of the other stars in the sky will look like they move over the night. So if anyone has ever done any photography of the night sky, or if you've just looked at the stars for a really long time, they look like they kind of carve out these arcs, these lines across the sky. What's really important to note is that it's not actually the stars that are moving, it's just that we're rotating, okay? We obviously don't feel the rotation of the Earth, so to us, it looks like the stars are moving, okay? As Louise said, on the other side, once you're close to Polaris, you can also see Cassiopeia. So if, again, we've got the plough over here, we shoot up to get to Polaris, the North Star, and sort of on the other side of Polaris, you'll find Cassiopeia, okay? So this is the kind of wonky W, or the rocking chair constellation here, okay? So if you go out, maybe not tonight, but maybe tomorrow, you find the plough, or the Big Dipper. From that, you can get up to Polaris, and then Cassiopeia is kind of on the opposite side, okay? Now, as Louise said, a lot of people think that the North Star, Polaris, is the brightest star in the sky. It's not. It is Sirius, or the Dog Star, as it's commonly known. Right now, just after sunset, Sirius is down here, just above the horizon. It does set a little bit after the sun at the minute, but generally year-round you can kind of see it at different times during the night, and it is the brightest star in the sky. For any Harry Potter fans, there is a little bit of a connection. So Sirius Black in Harry Potter is an animagus. He's a character who can turn into an animal, and he turns into a dog. And the theory goes that the inspiration for that came from Sirius, which is the dog star, and that's the connection. So it's the brightest star in the sky. When you look up at the night sky at a set of stars, you'll notice that some of them are really bright and some are really faint. So a good example of this is if you look at the sky in Dublin versus if you are out in Connemara or Kerry or somewhere a bit more rural, and you see a lot more stars. The same number of stars are there in both places. It's just that the stars that are fainter get blocked out by the light pollution in big cities and towns and things like that. So I said that Sirius is the brightest star in our sky. With each star, there's kind of a combination of things that lead to how bright they are as we see them. So the first thing is how close the star is to us. So in general, stars that are closer to us are going to appear brighter, right? Because the light from the stars have to travel a shorter distance. But the other thing that plays into it is the star itself and how brightly it's kind of shining. So the thing with this is that stars come in all different sizes. Generally, the bigger the star, the faster it's burning and the brighter it burns, and so it gives off more light. So, like I said, the distance from the star to us makes a big difference. Sirius is our brightest star, but it's not our closest star. So our closest star is Proxima Centauri. It's about double the distance to Sirius as it is to Proxima Centauri. But Sirius is a much bigger star. So it's burning a lot faster, it's burning a lot brighter. And so to us, it appears much brighter in the sky. The very last thing that I wanted to mention, for anyone who has read the book, there is mention of the moon being up on your birthday, and I believe Billy makes a promise that the moon will be up on Debbie's birthday. The moon goes through a cycle of about 30 days. So it's a pretty good promise to make to someone that the moon will be up on their birthday, because generally we only have a new moon, that is no moon, about once a month. So roughly every 1 in 30 birthdays there will be no moon on your birthday. So it's a pretty good promise to make. But you can check online if the moon is going to be up or not on your birthday on any given year. But maybe you could check that for yourselves tonight. So if you want to have a look up at the stars, maybe over the next couple of nights, hopefully the clouds will clear and you'll be able to spot some of these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Syed. That was, from my point of view, really bizarre that you were talking about my book. But so interesting. And yeah, just to make the point that Billy's a bit of a bullshitter. So he said that he knew that the moon would be up for Debbie's birthday. He didn't at all. He's just charming her. And he also makes a rule that Debbie can only come out to the caravan with the wishes when there is a full moon, and that's to stop her from coming out every night, bringing clutches of dandelions with her. So it's a setting kind of a magical, gentle boundary. So yeah, the next, I'm just going to read a short passage from the book called Aisling. I used to sleep in the tabernacle with Mam. After the 9 o'clock news, Grandad sent us up to bed. We changed into our pyjamas and brushed our teeth. I wasn't tall enough to reach the sink, so I spat my toothpaste into the toilet bowl. We turned the bed into a tent by pulling the blankets up over Mam's head. She used to read me a pop-up book of Alice's adventures in Wonderland. I loved Alice. The white apron that went over her blue dress showed off her tiny waist. When I pointed to her on the page, my finger was fatter than her. She looked like a Disney princess. When Alice saw the white rabbit, Mam made bunny ears out of her fingers and threw a rabbit shadow on the wall. It flickered in the lamplight like magic cast by an old film projector. My least favourite page was the last one, when the adventure ends and Alice wakes up in the bank beside her sister. I peeled off the back page to expose the cardboard underneath. Mam's reading of Alice's adventures in Wonderland would eventually veer off course. This usually happened when she read Alice's Worry. I wonder if I've been changed in the night. Let me think. Was I the same when I got up this morning? I almost think I can remember feeling a little different. But if I'm not the same, the next question is, who in the world am I? Alice is not herself because she has disappeared, Mam explained. When Alice falls down the rabbit hole into Wonderland, she falls out of herself. It happens to us all. When we fall asleep, we fall out of ourselves. I was never sure if this is a good or bad thing. The way Mam described the dreams reminded me of trying to follow Billy's hand when he pointed to a star. That's Orion's belt, he'd say. I'd look up at the sky solemnly, seeing nothing but mulling over the phrase Orion's belt. I never saw Orion or his belt, but the mystery was enough. It was better. The mystery of dreams was enough for me too. I tried to follow Mam's logic, but she let go of my hand along the way. Mam used to tell me a bedtime story about a speck of dust called Aisling who didn't believe in snow. Every night, when Aisling fell asleep, cold water came and turned her into a snowflake. When morning arrived and the sun came out, Aisling melted back into dust before she woke up, completely unaware that she had changed into the thing she didn't believe in her sleep. She felt something cold tugging at her, but the memory was numb and frozen over. She dismissed it as a fragment of a dream. Mam ended the story by running to the freezer in the utility room. I followed her downstairs in my pyjamas, my bare feet slapping the linoleum floor. The chest of the freezer hinged open like a coffin, and smoke rose up like mist. We scraped our fingernails along the side to gather snow. Mam told me that we would need a microscope to see the snowflakes properly, even though they were right under our noses. Like the way Billy needs a telescope to see stars, I asked. Yes, she said, except it's the opposite. The telescope helps us see things that are far away by bringing them closer. The microscope helps us see things that we can't see properly because we're too close to them. It creates distance between us. Perspective. Would Aisling believe in snow if she had a microscope? I asked. Mam thought about that, and then told me another story about the first man to photograph snowflakes. They called him the Snowflake Man. He caught snowflakes on black velvet and photographed them with a microscope attached to a camera lens. He was able to capture the image of the snow crystal's structure before they melted. But a photograph is not the real thing. And then she said, very seriously, there is no way to catch a snowflake, and I haven't met anyone who is able to catch a dream.